It's not about income. It's about allocation. It's not about earning more. It's about directing better. It's not about luck. It's about discipline. That's the key. Many financial mistakes happen because people react emotionally. A sale appears. An advertisement appears. A new trend appears. Money leaves the account before thought enters the process. Millionaires pause. They ask questions. Does this improve my future? Does this align with my goals? Does this deserve a mission? That pause prevents countless mistakes. That's the key. Money follows systems. The wealthy understand this. They create automatic transfers, automatic investments, and automatic savings plans. They remove emotion whenever possible, because systems outperform willpower. Again and again. That's the key. Every dollar that enters your life should strengthen one of four areas: protection, growth, opportunity, lifestyle. If a dollar strengthens none of them, reconsider where it is going. That single habit can transform your finances. That's the key. The goal is not to eliminate enjoyment. The goal is intentional enjoyment. Spend deliberately. Save deliberately. Invest deliberately. Everything should have a purpose. Everything should support the mission. That's the key. You have a choice. Let money drift, or give money direction. One leads to frustration. The other leads to financial progress. Millionaires choose direction. Again and again. Because direction creates results. That's the key. Master this principle and money stops controlling your future. You begin controlling money. You stop wondering where it went. You start deciding where it will go. Every dollar becomes a worker. Every dollar becomes a tool. Every dollar becomes part of a larger strategy. And that is exactly how fund managers think. Now that every dollar has a mission, it's time to understand the next principle of millionaire fund management. Because assigning money a mission is important, but protecting that mission from unnecessary risk is even more important. Chapter 4. Stop chasing returns and start managing risk. Some dollars should create future opportunities. Every dollar needs a mission. Every dollar needs a destination. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission to become financially disciplined. You don't need permission to start managing money differently. You don't need permission to stop following the crowd. Most people are not wealthy. Why copy their financial habits? That's the key. The average person asks, "What can I afford?" The wealthy ask, "Is this the best use of my money?" That question changes everything. Because affordability and wisdom are not the same thing. You may be able to afford something. That doesn't mean you should buy it. That's the key. Money follows leadership. Think about that. Money follows leadership. When you fail to direct money, someone else will. Advertisers, retailers, credit card companies, social pressure, consumer culture. Everyone wants your money. The question is whether you have a plan for it before they do. That's the key. Most financial problems are not income problems. They are management problems. A person can earn more and still struggle. Because increasing income without improving behavior only magnifies mistakes. More money does not fix poor habits. More money often exposes them. That's the key. It's not about income. It's about discipline. It's not about earning. It's about directing. It's not about luck. It's about leadership. The wealthy understand this deeply. That's the key. Imagine running a company. Would you allow money to leave the business without knowing where it went? Of course not. Yet millions of people do exactly that every month. They spend without tracking. They buy without planning. They react instead of directing. Then they wonder why progress feels impossible. That's the key. Millionaires act differently. They review. They plan. They allocate. They measure. Because what gets measured gets managed. And what gets managed improves. That's the key. You have a choice. Continue drifting financially, or start directing your financial future. One creates uncertainty. The other creates control. The wealthy choose control. Again and again. Because control creates confidence. That's the key. A powerful habit is to assign every dollar before it arrives. Give your income instructions. Decide where it will go. Decide how much will be saved. Decide how much will be invested. Decide how much will be spent. Never allow money to wander. Money without direction disappears. That's the key. Many people think budgeting is restrictive. Millionaires understand the truth. Budgeting creates freedom, because freedom comes from knowing where your money is going. Freedom comes from intentional decisions. Freedom comes from control. That's the key. Control your money before it controls you. Remember that. Control your money before it controls you. Again, control your money before it controls you. Every financial success story begins with awareness. Awareness becomes planning. Planning becomes action. Action becomes habits. Habits become wealth. The process is simple. Not easy, but simple. That's the key. Starting today, stop asking how much money you make. Start asking where your money goes. Stop focusing only on earning. Start focusing on directing. Stop thinking like a spender. Start thinking like a fund manager. Because fund managers do not hope money grows. They manage it. They direct it. They control it. That's the key. Master this principle and everything changes. Your savings improve. Your investments improve. Your confidence improves. Your future improves. Because wealth begins the moment you stop treating money casually and start treating it intentionally. You have learned that earning money is not enough. Now it's time to learn the principle that keeps wealth alive once it is created. Because before money can grow, it must first be protected. Chapter 2. The wealthy protect before they grow. Chapter 4. Stop chasing returns and start managing risk. Most people enter the world of investing asking one question. How much money can I make? Millionaires ask a different question. How much money can I lose? That's the key. The average investor focuses on reward. The wealthy focus on risk. Not because they are fearful, because they are responsible. Because they understand a truth that many people learn too late. Protecting capital is easier than rebuilding it. That's the key. Risk first. Reward second. Remember that. Risk first. Reward second. Again. Risk first. Reward second. Every financial disaster begins with the same mistake. Someone becomes obsessed with potential gains and ignores potential losses. They focus on excitement. They focus on possibilities. They focus on dreams. And they forget to evaluate danger. The wealthy never make that mistake. That's the key. Think about professional fund managers. They do not wake up every morning looking for the highest return possible. They look for the best balance between risk and reward. Because a great return means nothing if it destroys your financial future when things go wrong. That's the key. You have a choice. Chase excitement or manage risk. One creates emotional decisions. The other creates intelligent decisions. Millionaires choose intelligence. Again and again. Because intelligence protects wealth. That's the key. Many people assume risk means danger. Not exactly. Risk means uncertainty. And uncertainty exists everywhere. Markets rise. Markets fall. Businesses succeed. Businesses fail. Economies expand. Economies contract. No investment is completely free of risk. The goal is not eliminating risk. The goal is understanding it. That's the key. Protect to prosper. Protect to prosper. Again. Protect to prosper. Imagine crossing a river. Would you blindly jump into the water? Or would you evaluate the safest path? Of course you would evaluate first. Yet many people invest without doing the same thing. They see excitement. They hear promises. They follow trends. And they ignore risk. That's the key. Millionaires ask questions before making decisions. What could go wrong? What is the downside? Can I survive the loss? What is my exit plan? These questions create discipline. These questions prevent emotional mistakes. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission to move cautiously. You don't need permission to avoid hype. You don't need permission to walk away from bad opportunities. The crowd often rewards excitement. Wealth rewards discipline. That's the key. One of the biggest mistakes investors make is confusing speculation with investing. Speculation is often driven by hope. Investing is driven by analysis. Speculation asks, "What if I get rich?" Investing asks, "What are the risks?" Millionaires think like investors, not gamblers. That's the key. It's not about greed. It's about discipline. It's not about chasing profits. It's about protecting capital. It's not about excitement. It's about sustainability. That's the key. Think about a ship crossing an ocean. The captain does not focus only on reaching the destination. The captain also prepares for storms. The wealthy do the same thing. They prepare for uncertainty, because preparation creates confidence. That's the key. Many investors lose money because they become emotional. When markets rise, they become greedy. When markets fall, they become fearful. Emotions take control. Bad decisions follow. Millionaires create systems to avoid emotional reactions. They rely on plans. They rely on rules. They rely on discipline. That's the key. The purpose of risk management is not to avoid opportunity. The purpose is to survive long enough to benefit from opportunity. That is a huge difference. That's the key. A small loss can be recovered. A catastrophic loss can change your future. That is why wealthy people spend so much time thinking about downside risk. Because protecting what you have allows you to continue growing. That's the key. Many people chase investments that promise extraordinary returns. The wealthy ask whether those returns are realistic. They understand that if something sounds too good to be true, it often is. Discipline protects them from expensive mistakes. That's the key. Think like a manager. Think like a manager. Again, think like a manager. A fund manager's job is not simply to grow money. A fund manager's job is to protect money while growing it. Both responsibilities matter. Ignore one and the entire strategy fails. That's the key. You have a choice. Focus only on upside, or evaluate both upside and downside. One creates blind spots. The other creates wisdom. Millionaires choose wisdom, again and again, because wisdom creates consistency. That's the key. The best investors understand that avoiding major mistakes is often more important than finding extraordinary opportunities. One terrible decision can erase years of progress. One disciplined decision can preserve decades of growth. That's the key. Risk management is not weakness. It is strength. It is confidence. It is maturity. It is responsibility. The wealthy understand this deeply. That's the key. Every financial decision should pass a simple test. Does the potential reward justify the potential risk? If the answer is no, walk away. There will always be another opportunity. There may not always be another chance to recover. That's the key. Master this principle and your financial decisions become stronger. You stop chasing every trend. You stop following every crowd. You stop reacting emotionally. You start evaluating intelligently. You start protecting intentionally. You start investing professionally. Because real wealth is not built by taking reckless risks. It is built by managing risk wisely. And once you understand how to manage risk, you can finally unlock one of the most powerful forces in fund management. A force that turns small investments into extraordinary wealth. A force called compounding. Chapter 5. Make compounding your business partner. Chapter 5. Make compounding your business partner. Most people want wealth quickly. Millionaires understand that wealth grows slowly before it grows dramatically. That's the key. The average person looks for shortcuts. The wealthy look for compounding. Because compounding is the closest thing to a financial superpower. It takes small actions and turns them into extraordinary results over time. That's the key. Time multiplies discipline. Remember that. Time multiplies discipline. Again, time multiplies discipline. Many people underestimate what can happen when money is given enough time to grow. They focus on weeks. The wealthy focus on decades. They understand that true wealth is rarely built in a single year. It is built through consistent action repeated over long periods of time. That's the key. Imagine rolling a snowball down a hill. At first, growth is almost invisible. The snowball moves slowly. Progress seems small. But as it continues, the snowball becomes larger and larger. Momentum builds. Growth accelerates. Compounding works exactly the same way. That's the key. Most people quit before compounding begins to show its power. They become impatient. They expect immediate results. When those results fail to appear, they stop. The wealthy remain patient because they understand that the biggest rewards come later. That's the key. Stay invested. Remember that. Stay invested. Again, stay invested. Many people think wealth is built through massive opportunities. Millionaires know wealth is often built through small opportunities repeated consistently. A little saved, a little invested, a little improved, day after day, month after month, year after year. That's the key. You have a choice. Focus on immediate gratification or focus on long-term growth. One creates temporary satisfaction. The other creates lasting wealth. Millionaires choose growth again and again because growth compounds. That's the key. The greatest advantage wealthy people possess is often not intelligence. It is patience. Patience allows compounding to work. Patience allows investments to mature. Patience allows wealth to expand. Without patience, compounding never reaches its potential. That's the key. Many investors make the mistake of constantly moving money. They jump from one opportunity to another, one trend to another, one prediction to another. The wealthy understand that constant movement often interrupts growth. That's why they trust the process. That's the key. Compounding rewards patience. Compounding rewards patience. Again, compounding rewards patience. Think about planting a tree. The first few years may seem unimpressive. Growth appears slow. Results appear limited. But beneath the surface, roots are expanding. Strength is developing. Eventually, the growth becomes impossible to ignore. The same principle applies to wealth. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to think long-term. You do not need permission to ignore financial noise. You do not need permission to stay focused while others chase shortcuts. Because shortcuts often create setbacks. Compounding creates progress. That's the key. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year. They underestimate what they can achieve in 10. That mistake costs them dearly. Millionaires understand that meaningful success takes time. That's the key. Every dollar invested is like an employee. That employee goes to work, then produces more employees. Then those employees produce even more employees. Eventually growth becomes exponential. That is the power of compounding. That's the key. It's not about speed. It's about discipline. It's not about excitement. It's about consistency. It's not about predicting the future. It's about participating in the process. That's the key. The wealthy understand that time is their greatest asset. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. That is why they start early. And if they start late, they start immediately. Because every year matters. Every month matters. Every day matters. That's the key. Many people believe they need large sums of money to benefit from compounding. That belief is dangerous. Compounding cares more about consistency than size. A small amount invested regularly often beats a large amount invested inconsistently. The habit matters. That's the key. Successful fund managers understand this principle deeply. They focus on process, not emotion. They focus on discipline, not predictions. Because process creates consistency. Consistency creates growth. Growth creates wealth. That's the key. You have a choice. Start now, or keep waiting. One allows compounding to begin working for you. The other delays your future. Millionaires choose action. Again and again. Because action starts the clock. That's the key. Think long-term. Very long-term. 10 years. 20 years. 30 years. The wealthy make decisions with decades in mind. That perspective changes everything. It changes spending habits, investment decisions, risk tolerance, financial priorities. That's the key. Compounding affects more than money. Knowledge compounds. Skills compound. Relationships compound. Habits compound. Every positive action repeated consistently creates increasing returns. The wealthy understand this universal principle. That's the key. When you partner with compounding, you stop chasing quick wins. You stop demanding instant results. You start trusting the process. You start valuing consistency. You start building wealth the same way millionaires do. One disciplined decision at a time. That's the key. Master this principle and time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Every year strengthens your position. Every investment strengthens your future. Every disciplined choice strengthens your freedom. Because compounding never stops working for those who remain patient enough to benefit from it. And once compounding begins building wealth, another powerful principle becomes essential. Because wealth is not measured only by assets. It is measured by the income those assets produce. Chapter 6. The Secret Power of Cash Flow. Chapter 6. The Secret Power of Cash Flow. Most people focus on net worth. Millionaires focus on cash flow. That's the key. A person can own expensive assets and still struggle financially. A person can appear wealthy and still feel trapped. Why? Because wealth on paper is not the same as money flowing into your life consistently. That's why cash flow matters. That's the key. Cash flow creates freedom. Remember that. Cash flow creates freedom. Again, cash flow creates freedom. Cash flow is simple. Money comes in. Money goes out. If more money comes in than goes out, you create strength. If more money goes out than comes in, you create pressure. Millionaires understand this principle deeply. They do not simply focus on accumulating wealth. They focus on creating income-producing assets. That's the key. Think about the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out. The wealthy spend their lives acquiring assets. The average person spends their lives acquiring liabilities. That small difference creates massive results. That's the key. You have a choice. Buy things that cost you money, or buy things that generate money. One creates dependence. The other creates freedom. Millionaires choose freedom. Again and again. Because freedom comes from income, not appearances. That's the key. Many people believe a high salary guarantees financial success. It doesn't. A high salary without cash flow management can disappear quickly. A modest income combined with strong cash flow management can build tremendous wealth. That's the key. Income buys options. Remember that. Income buys options. Again, income buys options. Imagine two people. The first earns a large income but spends nearly everything. The second earns less but owns assets that produce cash flow every month. Over time, the second person often becomes financially stronger. Because assets continue working. That's the key. Millionaires understand that active income has limits. There are only so many hours in a day. Only so much energy. Only so much time. That is why they focus on building passive and recurring income streams. They want money flowing even when they are not actively working. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to think differently about income. You do not need permission to build additional income streams. You do not need permission to create financial independence. Because dependence is risky. Income diversity creates strength. That's the key. Many wealthy individuals own businesses, investments, real estate, or other assets that generate recurring income. The specific asset matters less than the principle. The principle is cash flow. Money continuously working for you. That's the key. Most people focus on accumulation. The wealthy focus on production. They ask a different question. Not how much do I own, but how much does what I own produce? That question changes everything. That's the key. Build income, not dependence. Build income, not dependence. Again, build income, not dependence. Dependence on a single paycheck creates vulnerability. Dependence on a single opportunity creates risk. Dependence on a single source creates uncertainty. Millionaires reduce dependence by increasing cash flow sources. That's the key. Think like a fund manager. A professional fund manager does not simply collect assets. A professional fund manager expects those assets to perform. Every dollar must justify its existence. Every investment must serve a purpose. Every asset must contribute. That's the key. It's not about income. It's about cash flow. It's not about ownership alone. It's about productive ownership. It's not about appearances. It's about performance. That's the key. Many people buy assets because they sound impressive. Millionaires buy assets because they produce results. One seeks status. The other seeks income. The difference is enormous. That's the key. Cash flow creates flexibility. Cash flow creates opportunity. Cash flow creates confidence. When income continues flowing, decisions become easier. Pressure decreases. Options increase. That's why cash flow is so powerful. That's the key. You have a choice. Work only for money, or build assets that work alongside you. One limits your future. The other expands it. Millionaires choose expansion. Again and again. Because leverage multiplies results. That's the key. Many people underestimate how life-changing recurring income can become. Even modest cash flow creates momentum. Even small income streams create flexibility. Even simple systems create progress. The wealthy understand this. That's why they start building. That's the key. Cash flow also provides resilience. Economic downturns happen. Markets fluctuate. Unexpected events occur. People with multiple income streams often navigate challenges more effectively because they are not relying on a single source. That's the key. Financial freedom is not achieved when you stop working. Financial freedom begins when your assets contribute meaningfully to your lifestyle. When income starts arriving from ownership. When money begins working on your behalf. That's the key. The goal is not to replace effort overnight. The goal is to gradually increase productive income. One asset, one investment, one opportunity at a time. That is how fund managers think. That is how wealth grows. That's the key. Master this principle and you stop measuring success only by salary. You start measuring success by income streams. You stop asking how much you earn. You start asking how much your assets produce. Because true financial strength comes from production. Not consumption, from cash flow, not appearances. And once you understand the power of cash flow, you must adopt the mindset that creates it consistently. The mindset of ownership. Chapter 7. Think like an owner, not a consumer. Chapter 7. Think like an owner, not a consumer. The biggest difference between wealthy people and average people is not income. It is not education. It is not luck. It is mindset. Specifically, the difference between thinking like an owner and thinking like a consumer. That's the key. Consumers spend money. Owners deploy money. Consumers focus on today. Owners focus on tomorrow. Consumers ask, what can I buy? Owners ask, what can I own that will grow in value? That single shift changes everything. That's the key. Ownership changes everything. Remember that. Ownership changes everything. Again, ownership changes everything. Most people are trained to consume. Advertisements encourage consumption. Social media encourages consumption. Modern culture rewards consumption. Buy more. Upgrade more. Spend more. Show more. The wealthy think differently. They focus on ownership. Because ownership creates leverage. Ownership creates income. Ownership creates wealth. That's the key. You have a choice. Spend money on things that lose value. Or spend money on things that create value. One creates temporary satisfaction. The other creates lasting freedom. Millionaires choose freedom. Again and again. That's the key. Think about a simple example. A consumer buys something and hopes it brings happiness. An owner acquires something and expects it to produce results. The consumer asks, how does this make me feel? The owner asks, how does this improve my future? That's the key. Many people spend years building lifestyles. Millionaires spend years building assets. The lifestyle eventually follows. That is an important lesson. Wealth is often the result of delayed gratification, not immediate gratification. That's the key. Own more, or less. Remember that. Own more, or less. Again. Own more, or less. Ownership does not always mean starting a large business. Ownership can take many forms. Owning investments, owning productive assets, owning intellectual property, owning real estate, owning businesses. The specific vehicle matters less than the principle. The principle is ownership. That's the key. Consumers exchange money for experiences. Owners exchange money for opportunities. Consumers think about spending. Owners think about building. Consumers focus on costs. Owners focus on value. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to think differently. You do not need permission to stop chasing status. You do not need permission to prioritize ownership. The crowd often celebrates consumption. Wealth celebrates ownership. That's the key. Many people buy expensive items to appear successful. The wealthy often buy productive assets to become successful. That difference may not be visible immediately, but over time the gap becomes enormous. That's the key. Imagine two individuals receiving the same amount of money. One upgrades their lifestyle. The other acquires assets. 10 years later, the outcomes are dramatically different. One owns memories of purchases. The other owns assets producing income. That's the key. Buy assets, not applause. Buy assets, not applause. Again. Buy assets, not applause. Applause is temporary. Assets are productive. Approval fades. Ownership compounds. External validation disappears. Income-producing assets continue working. That's the key. Many consumers focus on appearances. Many owners focus on reality. Reality wins. Always. Because markets do not reward appearances. Markets reward value creation. That's the key. It's not about status. It's about discipline. It's not about impressing people. It's about building freedom. It's not about looking rich. It's about becoming rich. That's the key. Millionaires understand leverage. Leverage allows one decision to create multiple results. Ownership creates leverage. A productive asset can continue generating value long after the original purchase. That is why owners often move ahead financially. Their assets continue working. That's the key. Think like a fund manager. A fund manager evaluates every opportunity based on future value. Not emotional excitement. Not social approval. Not temporary satisfaction. Future value. That's the key. The wealthy constantly ask themselves a powerful question. Will this increase my future options? If the answer is yes, they pay attention. If the answer is no, they become cautious. Because options create freedom. That's the key. You have a choice. Focus on consumption, or focus on ownership. One reduces future opportunities. The other expands them. Millionaires choose expansion. Again and again. Because ownership creates possibilities. That's the key. Ownership also changes behavior. Owners think long-term. Owners think strategically. Owners think responsibly. When you own something valuable, your perspective changes. You become more disciplined, more patient, more intentional. That's the key. Many people underestimate the power of gradual ownership. You do not need to acquire everything at once. One asset at a time. One investment at a time. One opportunity at a time. Consistent ownership compounds. That's the key. The goal is not deprivation. The goal is prioritization. Enjoy life, but prioritize assets. Spend intentionally, but build consistently. Balance matters. That's the key. The wealthy are not obsessed with buying things. They are obsessed with acquiring productive assets. Because productive assets create cash flow. Cash flow creates freedom. Freedom creates options. And options create a better life. That's the key. Master this principle and your relationship with money changes forever. You stop measuring success by possessions. You start measuring success by ownership. You stop chasing appearances. You start building assets. You stop thinking like a consumer. You start thinking like a fund manager. Because every great fortune is built upon ownership. And once you begin thinking like an owner, another principle becomes essential. Because ownership alone is not enough. Success requires consistency. Success requires discipline. Success requires showing up even when emotions say otherwise. Chapter 8. Discipline beats market timing. Chapter 8. Discipline beats market timing. Most people are waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for the perfect market, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for certainty. And while they wait, time keeps moving. Opportunities keep passing. Compounding keeps delaying. That's the key. Millionaires understand something most people never learn. The perfect time rarely arrives. Success belongs to those who act consistently, not those who wait endlessly. That's the key. Consistency wins. Remember that. Consistency wins. Again, consistency wins. Many investors spend years trying to predict the future. They want to know when markets will rise, when markets will fall, when the next opportunity will appear. The problem is simple. Nobody knows with certainty. Not economists, not analysts, not experts, not fund managers. That's the key. The wealthy understand they do not need perfect predictions. They need disciplined behavior, because disciplined behavior creates reliable results over time. That's the key. You have a choice. Wait for perfect timing, or commit to consistent action. One creates delay. The other creates progress. Millionaires choose progress. Again and again. Because progress compounds. That's the key. Think about fitness. Imagine someone who exercises only when conditions are perfect. They exercise occasionally. Results remain inconsistent. Now imagine someone who follows a plan regardless of mood. Results become predictable. Investing works the same way. Discipline beats motivation. Discipline beats prediction. Discipline beats timing. That's the key. Discipline compounds. Remember that. Discipline compounds. Again, discipline compounds. Every consistent investment creates momentum. Every regular contribution strengthens the foundation. Every disciplined decision increases future opportunities. The wealthy understand this deeply. That's the key. Many people allow emotions to control financial decisions. When markets rise, they become excited. When markets fall, they become afraid. Their behavior changes with every headline. Their strategy changes with every opinion. Their emotions become their financial advisor. That is dangerous. That's the key. Millionaires operate differently. They create systems. They create rules. They create routines. Then they follow those routines consistently. Because systems outperform emotions. Again and again. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to ignore financial noise. You do not need permission to stay focused while others panic. You do not need permission to remain disciplined. Because the crowd is often emotional. Wealth is often built through discipline. That's the key. Imagine two investors. One constantly moves money based on predictions. The other follows a consistent investment plan. 10 years later, the disciplined investor often wins. Not because they predicted the future, because they respected the process. That's the key. Many people underestimate the value of routine. Routine removes uncertainty. Routine removes hesitation. Routine reduces emotional mistakes. That is why successful fund managers depend on process, not feelings. That's the key. Trust the system. Trust the system. Again, trust the system. The wealthy understand that no single investment determines their future. No single month determines their future. No single year determines their future. Success comes from thousands of disciplined decisions accumulated over time. That's the key. It's not about prediction. It's about consistency. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. It's not about timing. It's about participation. That's the key. Many investors spend enormous energy trying to avoid temporary declines. In doing so, they often miss long-term growth. Millionaires understand that temporary volatility is part of the journey. They remain focused on the destination. That's the key. Think like a fund manager. A fund manager cannot build a strategy around emotions. A fund manager builds a strategy around discipline. Rules create consistency. Consistency creates confidence. Confidence creates results. That's the key. One of the most powerful financial habits is automation. Automatic investing, automatic saving, automatic contributions. Automation removes excuses. Automation removes procrastination. Automation supports discipline. That's the key. You have a choice. Allow emotions to guide your decisions, or allow systems to guide your decisions. One creates unpredictability. The other creates reliability. Millionaires choose reliability again and again because reliable actions create reliable outcomes. That's the key. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency. You will make mistakes. Markets will fluctuate. Conditions will change. But if your process remains strong, progress continues. That's the key. Many people quit because results arrive slower than expected. The wealthy remain patient. They understand that meaningful wealth requires time. Compounding requires time. Discipline requires repetition. Success requires persistence. That's the key. The greatest financial advantage is often not superior knowledge. It is superior behavior. The ability to stay committed. The ability to stay focused. The ability to continue when others stop. That's the key. Discipline transforms ordinary actions into extraordinary outcomes. A small investment repeated consistently becomes significant. A small improvement repeated consistently becomes valuable. A small habit repeated consistently becomes powerful. The wealthy understand this universal truth. That's the key. Master this principle and financial success becomes less complicated. You stop worrying about perfect timing. You stop chasing predictions. You stop reacting emotionally. You focus on the process. You trust the system. You build momentum, because discipline will take you further than prediction ever can. And once discipline becomes part of your financial identity, the next step is transforming the way you think entirely. Because wealth is ultimately created by mindset before it is created by money. Chapter 9. Build a fund management mindset. Chapter 9. Build a fund management mindset. Everything begins in the mind. Before wealth appears in your bank account, it appears in your thinking. Before success appears in your results, it appears in your decisions. Before financial freedom becomes reality, it becomes a mindset. That's the key. Most people think money problems are financial problems. Often they are thinking problems. Because money follows behavior, and behavior follows beliefs. That's the key. Think like a manager. Remember that. Think like a manager. Again, think like a manager. A fund manager does not operate emotionally. A fund manager operates strategically. Every decision has a purpose. Every action has a reason. Every dollar has a mission. The wealthy apply this mindset to every area of life. That's the key. Many people react. Millionaires plan. Many people drift. Millionaires direct. Many people hope. Millionaires prepare. That difference creates dramatically different outcomes. That's the key. You have a choice. Live financially by accident, or live financially by design. One creates uncertainty. The other creates control. Millionaires choose control. Again and again. Because control creates confidence. That's the key. A fund management mindset starts with responsibility. No blaming. No excuses. No waiting for perfect conditions. The wealthy accept responsibility for outcomes. Good outcomes. Bad outcomes. All outcomes. Because responsibility creates power. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to take ownership of your future. You do not need permission to improve your habits. You do not need permission to think differently. Because transformation begins the moment responsibility begins. That's the key. Many people spend more time planning vacations than planning finances. They spend more time researching purchases than researching investments. They spend more time reacting than preparing. Millionaires reverse that pattern. Preparation becomes a priority. That's the key. Plan before you act. Remember that. Plan before you act. Again, plan before you act. Every successful fund manager follows a strategy. They know their objectives. They know their risks. They know their process. Without a plan, emotions take over. Without a plan, distractions multiply. Without a plan, mistakes become expensive. That's the key. The wealthy understand that every financial decision should support a larger vision. Money is not the destination. Freedom is. Options are. Security is. Opportunity is. That's the key. Many people focus only on immediate needs. The wealthy think years ahead. They ask different questions. Where will I be in 5 years? What am I building? What future am I creating? These questions change behavior. That's the key. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. It's not about wishing. It's about planning. It's not about dreaming. It's about executing. That's the key. Fund managers constantly measure performance. They review. They adjust. They improve. The wealthy do the same thing with their financial lives. They regularly evaluate progress. Because what gets measured gets managed. That's the key. Measure what matters. Measure what matters. Again, measure what matters. Many people avoid reviewing finances because they fear what they might find. The wealthy do the opposite. They confront reality. They study numbers. They identify weaknesses. They improve systems. Because awareness creates improvement. That's the key. Think about a pilot flying an airplane. The pilot constantly checks instruments, altitude, direction, fuel, weather conditions. Without measurement, mistakes become dangerous. Financial success works the same way. That's the key. A fund management mindset also values learning. Markets change. Economies change. Opportunities change. The wealthy remain students. They continue reading. They continue learning. They continue improving. Because knowledge compounds. That's the key. You have a choice. Stop learning. Or continue growing. One creates stagnation. The other creates opportunity. Millionaires choose growth. Again and again. Because growth creates advantage. That's the key. The greatest financial asset is not money. It is your ability to make intelligent decisions. That ability improves through education, experience, reflection, and discipline. That's the key. Many people wait for confidence before acting. The wealthy understand a different truth. Action creates confidence. Progress creates confidence. Learning creates confidence. Waiting rarely does. That's the key. A fund management mindset focuses on process over emotion. When emotions rise, process remains. When uncertainty appears, process remains. When challenges emerge, process remains. That consistency creates stability. That's the key. The wealthy understand that financial freedom is not built through isolated actions. It is built through systems, habits, processes, decisions repeated consistently over time. That's the key. Every principle in this audiobook connects here. Protect capital. Assign every dollar a mission. Manage risk. Trust compounding. Build cash flow. Think like an owner. Practice discipline. All of these principles require the same foundation. The right mindset. That's the key. Master this principle and everything changes. You stop reacting. You start directing. You stop drifting. You start planning. You stop hoping. You start building. Because wealth is not simply a financial outcome. It is the result of disciplined thinking repeated consistently over time. And once your mindset changes, you are ready for the final lesson. The lesson that brings every principle together. The lesson that explains why wealth matters in the first place. Chapter 10. Multiply wealth, create freedom. Chapter 10. Multiply wealth, create freedom. This is the destination. Not money, not status, not luxury. Freedom. That's the key. Everything you have learned throughout this audiobook points toward one outcome. Freedom of choice. Freedom of time. Freedom of opportunity. Freedom from constant financial stress. That is the true purpose of wealth. That's the key. Most people spend their lives chasing money without ever defining why. They want more income, more possessions, more comfort, but they never stop to ask the most important question. What is all this for? Millionaires know the answer. Freedom. That's the key. Freedom is the goal. Remember that. Freedom is the goal. Again, freedom is the goal. Money is simply a tool. Powerful tool, but still a tool. Its purpose is to create options. Its purpose is to create flexibility. Its purpose is to create independence. The wealthy understand this deeply. That's the key. Many people confuse wealth with appearances. They think wealth means expensive cars, large homes, luxury brands. The wealthy understand that real wealth is invisible. Real wealth is having choices. Real wealth is having control. Real wealth is having options. That's the key. You have a choice. Build a life that looks successful, or build a life that is successful. One depends on appearances. The other depends on substance. Millionaires choose substance. Again and again, because substance creates freedom. That's the key. Think back to everything you have learned. You learned to direct money instead of merely earning it. You learned to protect capital before chasing growth. You learned to give every dollar a mission. You learned to manage risk. You learned to trust compounding. You learned the power of cash flow. You learned to think like an owner. You learned that discipline beats timing. You learned to develop a fund management mindset. Each lesson pointed toward the same destination. Freedom. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You do not need permission to build wealth. You do not need permission to think differently. You do not need permission to pursue financial independence. You only need the discipline to act. That's the key. Many people dream about freedom. Few build it, because building freedom requires sacrifice, patience, consistency, responsibility. The wealthy accept those requirements. They understand that freedom must be earned. That's the key. It's not about luck. It's about discipline. It's not about talent. It's about consistency. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. That's the key. Imagine two individuals. One spends decades consuming. The other spends decades building. One focuses on appearances. The other focuses on ownership. One seeks immediate gratification. The other seeks long-term freedom. Eventually, their lives become dramatically different. Not because of intelligence. Not because of luck. Because of choices. That's the key. The wealthy understand a powerful truth. Every dollar can either buy pleasure today or freedom tomorrow. The challenge is learning when to choose each one. Balance matters. Discipline matters. Vision matters. That's the key. Many people underestimate how powerful small decisions become. A single investment may seem insignificant. A single disciplined action may seem unimportant. A single financial improvement may seem small. But repeated consistently, these actions transform lives. That's the power of compounding. That's the key. Freedom is not created overnight. It is created one decision at a time, one habit at a time, one investment at a time, one disciplined choice at a time. That's the key. The wealthy do not become wealthy because they know secrets. They become wealthy because they consistently apply principles. Simple principles. Timeless principles. Proven principles. Again and again. That's the key. You have a choice. Continue living financially by default, or begin living financially by design. One path leads to dependence. The other leads to independence. One path creates limitations. The other creates opportunities. Millionaires choose opportunities. Again and again. Because opportunities create freedom. That's the key. Think like a fund manager from this day forward. Direct every dollar. Protect your capital. Manage risk intelligently. Build cash flow. Acquire assets. Trust compounding. Stay disciplined. Continue learning. Those habits will separate you from the crowd. That's the key. Many people will hear these lessons and do nothing. Do not become one of them. Knowledge without action creates nothing. Action creates results. Action creates growth. Action creates freedom. That's the key. Start today. Not next month. Not next year. Today. Review your finances. Create a plan. Assign every dollar a mission. Build your first asset. Strengthen your cash flow. Take one step forward. Then another. Then another. That's how wealth is built. That's how freedom is earned. That's how extraordinary lives are created. That's the key. One day you will look back and realize something important. Financial freedom was never created by one lucky break. It was created by thousands of disciplined decisions, repeated consistently, year after year, choice after choice, action after action. And because you chose to think like a fund manager instead of a consumer, you created something far more valuable than money. You created freedom. That's the key. End of audiobook.